Hello and welcome to this episode of Breck Buzz. I'm Rick Holman, your town manager. Joining me today is our Mayor Pro Tem Wendy Wolfe and Council Member Erin Gigliello. Thank you both for being here.
Sure.
Thank you.
And welcome to 2017.
And Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Yes, and Happy New Year to all of you viewers out there. And we're certainly greeted early in the winter with what we cherish most here, and that's about 20 inches of fresh
Yes.
snow out there. A little bit of a challenge getting here today, but we did get here, and it's great for our guests here in Summit County.
Yeah.
Although I think our Public Works Department is working overtime as we speak, trying to clear the roads and the sidewalks and everything that goes along with a snowfall like this.
Yeah, but for our guests, those who maybe brushed it off during the holidays, now it's all fresh for the new arrivals here in January. So.
That's right. The skiing has to be great.
Oh.
And we did increase service recently, too.
Yes, yeah. And, with everything that we're doing, we know that we always look at how soon are we able to get into the core of town. And the core of town and our transit routes are priorities on our snow removal. And we're constantly looking at, how soon can we get in, get the core clean. And then right after that, it's how quickly can we remove the snow, because when you have this much snow on the ground and you pile it up in a parking lot, you're taking 3 to 4 to 5 parking spaces up with a big pile of snow.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And we have hauled, this winter already, we have hauled so many truckloads of snow for this early in the winter than anything on record recently.
Yeah.
So it's that snow we got, mid-December really was
Oh, yeah.
a lot of snow that we had a little bit of break and we were able to move out of town. But we're ready to go again for the next round. So
Good.
well, as we start our new year, and obviously for those viewers that tune in to us every month, we've talked a lot about our parking and transportation comprehensive plan. And I really want today to focus and talk about December. Because December was kind of monumental in our plan. We had some of our new transit operations, importantly our paid parking in the core of town kicked off December 1st. So it was kind of the first full month of a lot of the implementation processes coming together for a full month during a peak winter time for us. So I think it'd be great to go back and kind of evaluate and share some information with our viewers on what were successes and, some challenges that we've identified too. Erin?
Sure.
Transit, right?
Transit's
big.
Yes.
So.
And I think it's something really to be proud of. We've increased transit quite a bit. We've doubled the frequency at the Purple Route, and for viewers who may not know, the Purple Route's up at Wellington, and we made that route go both ways, which has in turn increased December over December 50%, which is huge. So that means all the families in Wellington can use the bus to get into town and then also come back pretty easily, and people have really liked it. And I know when you talk about challenges, we've heard things like sometimes the buses can't see people waiting and things like that, but we're working on it, and we're coming up with some creative solutions to solve that issue. But it's been a real success. December as a whole for the whole town has increased 20% December over December, which is pretty big, and that includes service to, well, no, that doesn't include service to Warriors Mark, but we can talk about that in a second. But it includes, out to Airport Road, the new trolley, which is big, and that's been really popular, and you can always listen for the bell to see when that comes along. But
hopefully.
Yes, hopefully. And some buses have even filled up, and which we've discussed potentially bringing in some what's called ghost buses.
A ghost bus. Yes.
Right, to have buses on hand so that when those buses do fill up, another one can sneak in on really high volume days. And we did just pass, what was it, December 29th, we had our busiest day ever, which was pretty exciting, yeah.
And Wendy, so on what Erin is referencing, on December 29th, we went over 8,000 riders
Yeah, which
that
is,
day.
and for the whole month of December, Erin mentioned we were up 20%, but that translates into 25,000 more riders this December than last December. And for a town our size, that's really significant, which says to me that the two things that are working together very, very well in our town right now, which I'm so proud of, and I'm proud of our locals for helping to make this all work, is our new paid parking, which has changed the dynamics in town. We'll talk about that more here a little bit, but how that is also working in concert with the transit. Because of these increased bus routes to neighborhoods like the Wellington, where people can use that bus because it's more efficient going both ways. Obviously, they're riding the bus, opting to ride the bus and not drive into work every day. And that makes a huge difference. And so the ridership is up. It's not just our locals, but also our guests, which means that the transit is obviously doing the right frequency, going to the right places, and it's getting people around. I mean, if it weren't doing the job, people still wouldn't ride it, right? I mean, so when it works, people are willing to take that free ride, and it makes a huge difference. So yeah, it's something that we should be very proud of, and there's more to come on transit to make it ever better. We look forward to the day when we'll have that next bus technology that will tell people when their next bus is arriving, and that'll make it even better than it is today. But we're getting there, and it's a really good story.
Which is in the works. It
Yes.
should be coming next year. Yeah.
Right.
And that's probably one of the biggest challenges we saw during those peak travel times, traffic times, like we always experience in town between Christmas and New Year's. I mean, unfortunately, some of our routes were running anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes behind because they can't move in town.
Right.
And especially if the route touches Park Avenue or Main Street, it's just a real choke point, and it's going to be very difficult. We can't fix that. That is a good problem to have. We have 35 to 40,000 guests in town, and we don't want to build infrastructure to handle Easter Sunday like
Right.
that.
Right.
But the technology will help, because a person, they could look on their app and say, well, my bus, it's still 20 minutes away, and then they don't need to go out and stand at that
Right.
stop. And it's not knowing when you're standing there.
Yeah.
Is it going to be 10 minutes or 20 minutes?
Exactly.
That's hard for
Right.
people, and we realize that, which is why we try to, if we have the staffing, the equipment, we try to throw an extra bus in those routes if we can to make that up. But that's challenging at times too.
Yeah.
But they were good problems. We did have several buses full, especially when they come off of Airport Road. The yellow route is always our most popular route, and oftentimes it's a full bus and it has to pass people by and they have to wait. But we run like every 8 minutes, so it's not too long there. Yeah. One of the things I want to remind people why we're so excited about seeing those transit numbers is because part of our overall plan is, remember, reducing the number of cars on the road. Every 2 to 3% reduction we have in cars makes a big impact. So if we're moving, by example, 8,000 people in one day, that's a lot of car trips we've eliminated off of the road.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah. And, I think it's only going to get better. As we get, hopefully we're going to talk about perhaps adding another trolley to Main Street. It's been very successful, and we're going to continue to look at still where we have opportunities to service some of the areas. Erin just mentioned how we're conducting a trial up in Upper Warriors Mark with a system that we've contracted out. And so far, in the December, we've had 2,800 riders in 22 days on that route. And I think that shows that there's real potential in some of these places. Now, that's particularly an area where we have a lot of short-term rentals during the season. So obviously, it was probably very busy between Christmas and New Year's, and then we'll have this early season and then into spring break. So we'll have a good chance to see what that does. But these are opportunities that we're looking at. And every time we send a new bus route around like that, we're getting people out of cars. Those people otherwise would have to drive into town. So those are a few less cars, and it's a tough business to be in to try to calculate. You know, how many cars might we exactly be taking off the road, because it's always a moving target, and how will we know? I must say, from my own observations during this season, Park Avenue definitely had its times where it was still, you know, between the pedestrians trying to cross, particularly at the Village, and the volume of traffic coming around Park Avenue at the end of the day, that it got backed up. However, Main Street, which oftentimes is also a parking lot during that time, it was moving slowly, but it was moving. And I think that's in part because people were not circling as much looking for that parking place because of the paid parking system. But I also think it's because we have succeeded in getting a few people out of their cars using the transit, which the numbers bear out. So.
And, you know, 2017 is our 20th year of operation of the town's free ride transit system. Kind of a milestone, I think, that we expect either towards the end of January or early part of February to hit our 10 millionth rider.
Woohoo.
Yeah, and so we're going to track that and kind of have a little bit of celebration when we identify that 10 millionth rider, and so
Greet
that'll
the rider with a bunch of balloons.
Yeah.
and-
something. Yeah.
Obviously.
Free Starbucks card.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yes.
But it'll be fun to track that as we get closer to that number. I mean, we hit. And it certainly will not take as long to hit our 20 millionth rider.
Yeah.
Because in the early years, you know, I think the first year we started, we transported like 60,000 people. And
Yeah.
this year we've transported, in 2016 we moved 885,000 people with our
Yeah.
free ride system.
Right.
So, you know, it's kudos to the town council. You know, we put a lot of resources. We spend a great deal of money.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and kudos to James Phelps and
Sure.
his team of drivers. I mean, they work so hard, and I know we just got a report about people subbing in, and yeah, it's not easy to be a driver out there, and they do a fabulous job.
Especially on a day like today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
and trying not to have an accident.
Yeah. You know,
Sure.
I think another thing that is working particularly well now, wasn't so much last year, but we've got this figured out, I think, a little better this year, is having the north end satellite lots with the yellow route running so often, bringing people in from the north end, but also now on the south end with the ice rink. You know, that we had expanded that lot, and so it's got larger capacity to park more cars. You can park there free during the day, and there are frequent, you know, shuttles. The trolley runs to the ice rink, as well as the ski area runs their buses. You can jump on just about any bus that stops there, and it's stopping there all the time, and get into town in short order.
Yeah.
And I think that I see a lot of people taking advantage of that, as we had hoped.
Yeah.
And so that's another really well-performing aspect of our whole parking plan.
Well, what I like is it's not just guests we're moving either.
Yeah.
And, you know, many of us have gone out and just observed and ridden the bus system in the last 30 days, and to see and talk to people. And, you know, I rode the Upper Warriors Mark shuttle just to see who's on it, who's using it, and talk to people. That one couple, it was the third time that day. I mean, that was their transportation down to town, and that's
Right.
what we want. And we're seeing more locals use the service. We're seeing the people that might have driven into town before, that now, because, you know, we've forced that change of behavior, they're looking for alternative modes of transportation. And I see it within our town staff and employees that are, you know, it's like it's causing us to rethink how we get around.
Well, I also would say too that a lot of our lodging shuttles, they're very busy as well. I see them through town, and we now have a new purple one with the Marriott Residence Inn. And so it's out shuttling folks, but the Breckenridge Grand Vacation shuttles, and they're all really busy. And that's great. Again, those are people who would otherwise have to drive their cars to come into town, and so they're on these shuttles. It's it takes everybody working at it. But I think we are probably at times, and we just came through that time, probably reflecting and saying, but aren't you just seeing a lot of buses and shuttles? I mean, isn't that also kind of a congested thing? And sure it is, but this was our very busiest time.
Yeah.
So if we can endure our very busiest time and not be complete gridlock, then it's better.
And my message to the viewers is, there's a lot of things that we're implementing, and we're going to talk about several of these today, but every day we're evaluating and reevaluating what's working and what do we need to tweak. And we know that as we're adding more routes and expecting people to use the bus more, that how we plow our roads and how we plow around our bus stops is something that we have to look at differently. And those are changes that we made on the fly in the last 2 weeks, because we can't have people walking over 4-foot windrows to try to get onto a bus. And so, we're not going to sit here and say everything is perfect, but it is a work in progress and something that we are all committed to examining. We would certainly welcome your feedback on areas where can be improvement in transit, and technology is something that will be happening in 2017, and we'll be talking about again. And what other routes, everybody says, well, where about, do we start going farther north, up around, off Tiger Road area and some of those at some point?
Yeah.
And those are all areas that we'll be examining. And certainly wherever we're adding housing and looking at that, those are opportunities for growth.
Yeah, and we've mentioned several times walkability throughout town and the correct amount of lighting. And Erin, I know you've been really looking too at the lighting. It's very important for safety, as well as just being able to see whether you're about to step on a patch of ice. Being able to see where you're going. And we have identified a lot of areas in our town that are just a little too dark.
Yes.
And we definitely are working very hard to get those corrected. I wish we could have actually had it a little bit better even during this last holiday season, but we bit off a lot.
Yeah.
So,
And I think it's important to know that it's on the radar.
Yeah.
It's not that we're not trying to now put in brighter lights, especially when we're asking people to walk around town. At night, there's a beautiful light glow of Breckenridge, but it doesn't exactly scream, walk here, walk there, especially on Park Avenue. And we know that. And it's just that it takes a long time to build these lights. So they're ordered, right? And it's just that we're waiting for them to be built, and then they'll be up and you'll see them. There is one area where you can see the brighter lights, which is that crosswalk near the rec center, and you'll notice that those lights are a little bit brighter. Now, it doesn't bother the dark sky laws because it's all pointed down, and it's a little bit of a warmer light, and so that makes it a little bit brighter. It is a little bit lighter too. It's not as yellow. It's a little bit whiter. But that makes for more visibility around that crosswalk, and I think it looks great, and I look forward to seeing more of that kind of lighting around town.
Yeah. And we increased that lighting next to Town Hall. So one thing that we've noticed recently is we're seeing more and more people leaving their car in like the North Gondola or South Gondola parking lot. But those people have already paid for a day's parking. We want them to leave their car there and then walk the 2 blocks into town. But we increased that lighting along Town Hall, and it's made a big difference. And
It really
I
has.
have just working there every day. I have seen increased pedestrian traffic on a nightly basis coming out of the gondola parking lot.
Yeah.
So
That's great.
yeah, I think that's another small success working.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's fun and great to talk about something that everybody loves, which is transit. But we'll shift gears now to a little tougher implementation thing was our paid parking in the core of town.
Yeah.
And we pulled the trigger on that December 1st.
Yes.
And share some of your observations.
Well, you can find a place to park in our town, and I think all of us have had to change our behavior to some degree to make this work. And so, again, I'm really grateful to everyone in our town who has paid attention to this and really tried to help make it work. And I believe it is working. I think that it is definitely shifting. Folks that did not need to park on Main Street and Ridge Street all day long and keep doing the 3-hour shuffle and there's alternatives for the employees, and I give great credit to the employees who I know are trying very much to use the employee parking designated areas, and we still have work to do on that as well, getting all of those areas signed correctly and make sure that we have adequate parking. It's hard to know the numbers and the shifts and the coming and the going of folks, and so we'll continue to work on those things. But the big improvement is that we freed up the spaces that we hoped to on each block, a couple of spaces every block, so that rather than to see cars go down Main Street and say, wow, if I just come around one more time, maybe I'll find a place. Mm-hmm. By the time they went one more block, they found their place and they parked. And I think that makes a huge difference for our town. I could hear people anecdotally telling me that that's their experience. That somebody said to me, I found that place on Ridge Street right in front of Fatty's, and I was surprised. And they parked there, and so it is going to be a change in that we'll all end up spending a few dollars here and there to use the paid parking, but we've kept the prices low. I believe that it is not asking too much to get people to come and go and not hang out and do the 3-hour shuffle. That was really something that our town could no longer tolerate. We were growing to the point where it's not possible. And so yeah, an interesting month. We had to communicate a lot to get everybody in the know. I think that I heard most people were aware of it when we started it and came through it pretty well. Erin, you could share some stories about app experiences. We've all heard of the app experiences, some things that work, some things that we still need to work on. But overall, pretty good. So
yeah, I would say so. And I would say overall, and we were talking about this on our way here, there are some things with the app that we're going to bring back, that we've learned as a council and that we've heard from community members. Like, for instance, why doesn't it just know with GPS where the zone is? And I've definitely heard that, and we're going to bring that back to Passport to see what they can do about that. And some other things like when the timing, when your time runs out, you can't up it afterward. You have to re-up your time if you'd like more time before it runs out. But little things like that. And I think once you know them, once you're aware of them, it runs smoothly. What I thought was interesting, though, was that 37,000 transactions happened with the kiosks, or people paid for parking through the kiosks. But only 13,507 were through the Passport app, which means that I'm wondering if all the locals know about the Passport app. So I would encourage people to check it out, and you can go to breckforward.com, and from there it's really easy to download the app, and all you do is you just put your information in once, and then from there on you just enter in a PIN, and it's super easy. And so I would encourage people who have been using the kiosks to download that app, because it makes the experience so much more smooth.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you never even have to go near a kiosk again once you have that that app
Right.
on your phone.
Right.
Right. And
Yeah.
something else that was improved that we had discussed and that we heard from our community members was that it was too difficult to see the number for the zones. And it took a little bit, but we ordered new signs and they're up. So the zone numbers should be a lot easier. So for the most part, I think you can see them from your car. And so you don't even have to leave your car to pay for your parking, which is nice.
But I'm with you, Erin. I want it to know what zone I'm in when I arrive. That would be ideal.
Like a suggested zone. Like, is this your zone? Yes.
Yeah. Well, the app is the way of the future for parking. We believe that this company is as good as any company out there that does apps for parking, and that we will engage them and ask them to push their technology and see what they can do to make this easier for people to park. Another thing that we discussed, the three of us, as we were coming here, was that we're not a community where it's a habitual practice every day. People come and go from the same work and park in the same place. We're a resort community. And so you have a lot of coming and going of different people. And so I think this app needs to be incredibly intuitive for somebody who just comes into Breckenridge and, it's their first day here. And, it needs to be friendly to everyone. And so the technology, I believe, is out there somewhere, and we'll push for it.
Yeah. And it's good to know that this app isn't just used here. It's used in other communities as well. And so it behooves them to improve, to figure this out with GPS and whatnot.
Right.
And it's always important for me to say, whenever we talk about paid parking, that paid parking is not new to Breckenridge. Paid parking on Main Street, Ridge Street, right on our streets is new and was new. But we've had paid parking in some of our core lots, and the Tiger Dredge lot next to the Riverwalk Center, F lot, which is across from the village. Those have been paid parking for as long as I have been with the town, for the past 15 plus years. And so we have people and those people are still using that. So when we look at and the parking that we're charging in the core of town, I think is as inexpensive as you will see anywhere in the country. I mean, 50 cents the first hour, and even the second hour during the slower times is only 50 cents. And so the average, when we look at the people using the application, those 13,000 uses and transactions, the average transaction was only $1.64, I believe.
Right. But as we've said so many times, this is not about revenue.
No.
And so it is about truly changing behavior so that our town works better for everyone. And so I think the goal was to charge as little as possible to get people to help, change these behaviors so that we could all, have Main Street and Ridge Street perform in the way that we need it to. And I hope that we're not over communicating that this is about just getting the guests who don't otherwise know how to park to a place on Main Street. I also saw throughout the holidays, and I was one of them, locals. I went to dinner several times with friends that were in town, and so did others that I'm aware of. When we're customers, it's just as important that we're able to find a place to park in town and go to our favorite restaurant or do some shopping in town. And that's what it's all about. And so I do think that it worked really well.
From the town's perspective, we have received far more compliments than we have complaints.
Yeah.
And there are complaints. There's some things that don't work as well or that we need to improve upon. And, people that just don't, that were used to pulling up and parking in front of their business. And, I'm sorry that time has ended. But it's a change. As long as I have been looking and studying this, I have to say I was amazed that first week in December when we did this, that how much traffic was removed off of Main Street. And that tells you what happens when we get the employees out of those prime spots and put them somewhere else.
Yeah.
But I think the feedback is important. This is our first crack at it. We're improving all the time. So if you do have any comments or some areas where you think that we could improve, please visit townofbreckenridge.com and submit your comments there. And it's okay if it's not all compliments, but if you do see something that you think or someplace you can't get to, like we were just talking about with transit, some of those bus stops, and that was we heard some comments about, I can't get there because of the snowbanks. Things like that, feel free to write in and let us know, because we can't do anything about things that we don't know about.
And Erin, employees is a challenge, and I don't want to appear insensitive to the fact that we moved employees off, and that creates a challenge for them, because it's also a reality. We need employees to work in our businesses and our restaurants, and we feel an obligation as town to help provide a solution to that. We have thousands of employees, and yet we only have, in the core of town, a couple hundred dedicated employee parking areas, and so those go quickly. And some of the comments that we've received is from employees, that they get there, they buy a permit, they get there, there's no parking space.
Right. So we have heard things about how once you leave the employee lots, sometimes it's hard to get back. So we would ask people to be mindful of that as well, as far as losing your spot and things like that, and keep an eye on, for instance, with the Wellington lot, only certain days are for employees and other days are not. And we're trying our best to communicate when those days are to employees in town. But we do really value people who work here, and that's an ongoing issue that we'll be talking about, particularly this January when we talk about incremental parking, which will be another big discussion, but that will be coming up this January. So if that's of interest to you, pay attention, come to the council meetings for sure.
But, and it was strategic in that we would not implement our additional paid parking until we provided an alternative solution for the employees, and that is our transit system.
Right.
The reason we've added over $1 million to our transit operations and new routes, because we want them to have a reliable alternative mode of transportation for employees. And so, but it does involve some changes in behavior and thinking about.
Well, and things. I think we also are mindful of the added pressure that this has put on French Street. And so we're watching that very closely to see how things have changed, and we'll have to evaluate that. You inevitably, when you put a system like this in, you end it somewhere. So French Street is where we're ending it right now, but we also know that French Street is a very important street. It's a important street to us locally. It's also known by our guests, and it's and it has a town parking all along French Street, and that we actually did not change anything on the street, French Street, with this system. But we are certainly watching it closely to see if we need to make any changes as we go along.
Just for information for our viewers, data is everything, right?
Yeah.
It helps us understand, and we, part of when you're managing parking is looking at occupancy levels and available parking spaces. And so, we're committed to understanding what impacts are occurring in areas, and we do traffic counts and counting the number of cars in every block, every parking lot that the town controls, every 100 block of Main, Ridge, French, 8 times a week. So on Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, and each of those days there's 2 counts. We count every parking, a car that's parking at 11 a.m. and again at 6 p.m. so that we have a late morning and the kind of late afternoon, early evening count, kind of for that dinner crowd. And it gives us a lot of information, and you certainly see some differences in weekend averages versus the Monday, Wednesday averages and times a day and those things. And it helps us paint a picture of where we see problems occurring and where we still may have some underutilization.
Yeah.
parking.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So more to come on that stuff. The other thing, kind of as we start to wrap up here, I wanted to just talk about, and you touched on this earlier, was, we keep saying we're doing all this to address congestion, and I really hope that our guests don't judge that congestion based on the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, right.
Because we're never going to have a cure for that.
Yeah.
And it's just worth mentioning again. But as we start to go into 2017 and continue to look at this, because it is not done, and
Right.
there's a lot of things. What's coming up next, and what's the council going to be looking at with regards to our comprehensive plan?
Well, starting in January, we have been doing an engineering study on Park Avenue, and we expect results back from that. I think that's the second meeting in January, the 23rd?
Fourth.
And so that's critically important to being able to add any incremental parking to the core of town, is to understand what Park Avenue can tolerate and what changes beyond. We're doing the 4 o'clock roundabout this summer. That's already
Spring.
bid out spring, and we'll be starting that as early as April, I
Yes.
believe. And so that's very important. But then beyond that, we also need to understand what happens around the village, what happens at Main and Park, and what happens along all the Watson and the City Market outflow. And so this study will hopefully tell us how we can deal with Park Avenue with more the potential of ingress and egress. If we were to add net new parking or a parking structure somewhere along the Park Avenue corridor. So that's number one to this next step, is Park Avenue. And then along with that is then where is the right place, and what kind of discussion will we have around adding net new parking, what we have come to call net new parking, along that Park Avenue corridor. F-lot has been on the table, and the South Gondola lot in discussions with the ski area has been on the table. So all of these will be further discussed as we come into 2017, starting with the end of January, starting again with this Park Avenue discussion, and then leading right into any more incremental new parking. And this is the most expensive part of any plan. We've spent a lot of money up to this point in time, but that doesn't hold a candlestick to what we might spend on Park Avenue and to add a parking structure. So we have to get this right. And that's what we're entering into, and I find that to be a very important discussion. And as Erin has said, if you're interested in that discussion, we just can't stress enough coming and participating and listening to that discussion and letting us know your thoughts. So.
In addition to the roundabout in that area, something that we've been planning for the last year also is kind of that improved walking pathway down from the roundabout actually right into the Blue River Plaza. And that's scheduled to begin construction at the same time as the roundabout.
That's right. So hopefully folks can just walk right down 4 o'clock more easily, and people can make essentially a left turn from 4 o'clock, which right now is a challenge for people. And it's a challenge when people are somehow in that intersection. I just saw it yesterday where somebody wasn't in a turn lane and people were walking out, and sometimes it's hard to see pedestrians, and so we're working on it, and hopefully by this summer we'll have the roundabout and a better walkway for people to walk down there, because that gets to be really busy, particularly around snow sculptures and things like that. Something else is I want to plug Breck Forward one more time, to download the app and to find out more of these improvements and to see what we're working on. And I think some more exciting things will be coming up. Oh, and Zipcar. We also have Zipcar now too. So if you want to check out how to use Zipcar and where to find that, which is another alternative way of using your own car. Or if you came here without a car, you can use a Zipcar to get where you need to go.
Yeah. Great tool. We had communication from Zipcar earlier today that we are one of the first resort markets that they've come into, and they're very pleased with the progression and increased usage of the vehicles, and they're seeing more what they would call local people signing up for the program. And I mean, they have over 1 million members nationally, and they had members from Chicago and Miami that were coming here for the holidays that had made pre-reservations for times when they needed it.
That's
And
great.
so that's exactly what we want to see with that. So
Very good.
yeah. Well, I want to thank you both for taking the time to talk about everything that we've had got going on here in Breckenridge, and it's a lot, but it's very exciting,
Yeah.
and it's. I think we're seeing successes and we're seeing improvements, and I look forward to us all working together in 2017 to continue the momentum that we have started now, and we hope to have you tune in and throughout this year and find out more about what's happening within your local government. And one of the things we want to do a little more also is highlight some of our areas, our departments, and spend one episode looking at our recreation department and the different programs, and highlight some of the staff and what they do with different activities that they offer, and things like that throughout the year to really have people become familiar with our town operations. So
It's going to be a good year.
Yeah.
Thank you both,
Thank you.
and
Thank you.
thank you for joining us today, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the future.
Thanks.